Hey everybody, bshowbrian, happy holidays again. This year I wanted to just share a movie with you guys that I think is one of the most underrated Christmas movies of all time. I think it came out during the genesis of the 80s slasher, but it doesn't really fit in with the 80s slashers. It's more of a psychological, slow psychological burn. It is called Christmas Evil, and I believe the other working title was You Better Watch Out. It stars Brandon Maggart. He is Fiona Apple's father, which I did not know. And unfortunately, I didn't even know about this movie until sometime last year or the year before. Through the course of Break the Apocalypse, John Draper shared this movie as one of his favorite holiday movies to watch. And since I've watched it several times now, and it's become one of my favorites as well. So, Christmas Evil is about a guy who learns a harsh truth on Christmas Eve, sees some interesting, unsettling imagery surrounding Santa Claus and his mother. Brings another meaning to the whole "I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus" thing. And ends up wanting to be Santa Claus and having a psychotic break. And he, as an adult, grows up to kind of live out this weird fantasy, this surreal fantasy that he is Santa Claus. And over the course of the film, as he has certain setbacks or some psychological issues, he ends up getting completely lost in his delusion. Again, not a lot of murder and bloodshed and mayhem until like the third act. So it's not like a nonstop gore fest. It's more like a perverse Christmas fairy tale in a way. If you look back to Twas the Night Before Christmas or certain stories like that, it's like a perverse version of that. It's this guy who thinks he's Santa Claus, trying to become Santa Claus, and completely breaking. It's very vintage, has a vintage feel. It's very nostalgic. As I mentioned, it takes place in, I think, 1980 or 1981. You see a lot of vintage Christmas decorations that you don't really see anymore, like the big plastic light-up snowmen and Santa Clauses and reindeer, some stuff that my family had when I was a kid. This big styrofoam Santa head, iconic vintage Santa Claus imagery where it's more elf-like that you just don't see anymore. It's much more commercial nowadays, and it really sets the tone. And some Christmas movies are made to look timeless, so that you can watch them in 2022, and it's still like Home Alone could still in some ways take place in 2022. This movie looks like an old movie, looks very vintage, and I think it adds to the charm to it because it looks familiar, but again, it adds to the surreal nature because looking back over 40 years, it looks like it takes place in a different time, even though it's familiar to us. Even the Santa look, when Brandon Maggart, spoiler alert, he glues a beard to his face. As I mentioned, the commercial-looking Santa Claus. You see, it's usually like whenever we go and we see pictures of Santa or a Santa at the mall, it's like, the beard's trimmed and it's nice. In this movie, he's got a long mustache that comes down over his face. You don't ever see that anymore. The Santa was soot in his beard. If Santa came down the chimney, he would be dirty and full of soot, and that's the way he's described in some of the old children's books, right? So Maggart looks like Santa. It almost reminds me of like when Dan Aykroyd dresses up as Santa in Trading Places. It looks like that. I mean, he's not pulling salmon out of his beard, but he's all dirty and grimy and looks the part. This film, another thing I really like about it, just that surreal nature, but it also highlights some of the creepier aspects of the legend of Santa Claus. I mean, think about it. A stranger with a bag of goodies is coming down your chimney or breaking into your house in the middle of the night to give them to your kids. Kind of creepy. We think nothing of having our kids go sit on a Santa Claus's lap, this complete stranger. And here, come sit on my lap, little guy. The whole mommy kissing Santa Claus thing is really brought out in this film. And the effect of what would happen if a kid would see that on Christmas Eve. And in this case, it goes the wrong way. So, even so much as spying on children. Santa Claus, no problem. Harry, this random dude on the block, it really highlights some of the creepier or stranger aspects of the legend that, and I gotta be careful because people are awake right now, that normally wouldn't be. But just the legend of Santa Claus and everything that goes with it, the mythology, the mythos, the story. There's a lot of creepy stuff, and what this film does, like a lot of other good horror films that have a surreal nature to it, is they take those and they, instead of ignoring them, they shine a light on it and they turn it into something good like this. As I mentioned, it's not an action-packed slasher. It's a slow descent into madness, and I think it's interesting because it predates the movie Falling Down with Michael Douglas by over a decade. You know, it does something else too. Like when bad stuff happens, I always hear people say things weren't like this back then. Like my parents or my grandparents, when they were still alive, would say, this world's just getting to be a crazy place. It wasn't like this. People weren't this crazy. They wouldn't just do this. But obviously these things existed, or people were aware of these potential issues, because Brandon Maggart's character Harry shows us in this film that some people are one insult or one subjugation away from a post office shooting or some sort of workplace massacre. So obviously it wasn't too outside the realm of possibility. As I mentioned, Brandon Maggart, if he didn't have the right touch of realism to this role, and if he didn't play it off well, I think it could have killed the entire concept of the film. Once Harry has a breakdown, the rest of the film is really surreal. Even the visuals of the very last scenes where it's hazy, the lights are there's like a glowy nature to the lights. They're very bright. There's old holiday decor, vintage, like I mentioned, the big 3-foot plastic snowmans and Santas like lining the sidewalks. It's a really interesting visual that creates almost like a surreal, dreamlike state for the end of the film. And the end of the film actually calls back, as I mentioned, Twas the Night Before Christmas. Harry, in a strange way, becomes Santa Claus in his own crazy way after his Christmas Eve killing spree, and after delivering gifts he's punishing bad people, he's killing people, and he's also delivering presents to kids, and the kids think he's great, and there's this cool standoff where the kids think he's awesome, and they're all huddled around him protecting him, and then you've got the parents all like ready to kill, but they don't want to make a move because they don't want the kids to be harmed in the process. So really, really cool points of tension there. Again, not scary, not slashery, but just like that psychological like chess match. Like the parents don't want to move, but they want to get them, and now the kids are in the way. Again, this movie's a lot better than some people give it credit for. But the very last shot, he kind of goes out like Santa, like his hero. He becomes Santa in the last page of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, flying off in his own way with his reindeer and in his sleigh. If you have Shudder, check it out on Shudder. It's there. If you don't, $5 is $5. I mean, it's not bad. For the value you get for all the horror titles they have there, I'd pay the $5 and check it out. And if not, I get it. It's on Tubi right now. Tubi, to me, is the biggest value in streaming. It's ad-generated, or ad-supported, I should say, and they have titles from horror to comedy to action, B-movies and A-movies. I mean, Tubi's the way to go, I think, if you're on a budget and you want some value. So either way, go watch it. It's funner to watch without the commercial breaks breaking things up. But Christmas Eve, it's one of my favorites, and hopefully it'll be one of yours. So go check it out. I'm bshowbrian. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Hopefully I can get another video or two out, but with people being up from their naps, I don't think that's going to happen. So enjoy. I will see you in the new year, and I appreciate all the support. Check out Break the Apocalypse at Break the App on Twitter. Patreon.com/BreakTheApp. $5 a month gets you bonus content and extended episodes. I don't know what else I can say other than Merry Christmas. Thank you for the support. I hope you enjoy the videos, and I'll see you again soon.